Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
Hello, and welcome to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 30, and in this episode, I wanted to talk about a personal experience that I had when it comes to controlling heat versus controlling humidity in your 3D printing space. Before we get into it, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who is still listening to the podcast and still leaving 5-star reviews. I really appreciate it. I know I haven't been posting with the consistency that I wanted to. I'm really trying to get back to posting at least twice a month, if not 3 times a month. So I really appreciate my whole entire audience for sticking with me. I'm going to be coming out with more high quality content, and I really love making this podcast. I really love being able to offer what I know and teach beginners. Even as a beginner myself, I don't know everything, but I'm happy to share my experiences with you and hopefully make this community continue to grow. So with that being said, let's get right into it. To provide a little background, my 3D printers now are in a room that is solely dedicated to them. There's only 3D printers in there. There's nothing else. And when I moved into this room, I also got a giant dehumidifier because I knew that I wanted to control the humidity and not make it get super humid in there, because I know that humidity is going to be one of the worst things that you can have for a room that's solely dedicated to 3D printers. If you have a ton of moisture in there, it's going to get in all the filament, it's going to get in the 3D printers, it's going to make the 3D printers rust, it's going to make the filament not print well, it's going to cause a lot of stringing, and just overall humidity is one of the worst things that you can have in a 3D printer room. So I got a giant humidifier and it worked really well. I was able to keep the humidity at around the mid-30s and getting no higher than 40%. And I was super happy with this. And another thing to note is that there was no air conditioning in this room. And when you have multiple printers running in a room with no air conditioning, let me tell you, it gets hot. I had temperature or thermometers in there, and it got up to 95 degrees in that room from time to time. Are you looking for a reliable partner to handle your manufacturing needs? Look no further than Xometry, your one-stop shop for all things manufacturing. Whether you need CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, or sheet metal fabrication, Xometry has you covered. With a network of over 10,000 manufacturers, Xometry ensures that you get high-quality parts on time and within budget. Plus, their instant quoting engine makes it easy to get a price and lead time for your project. They stand by the quality of their work, so you can trust that your parts will meet your specifications. Whether you're a small-time hobbyist needing custom parts for your next project, or an enthusiast looking for professional-grade manufacturing services, Xometry is the partner you can count on. Visit Xometry.com today and see how they can bring your ideas to life. That's Xometry.com, transforming ideas into reality, one part at a time. And as summer came around, in Southern California, it gets very hot in the summertime. I knew I was going to be up there more because I had to work on some things. I had some jobs that I had to finish, and I didn't want to be sitting in a room in 95 degree heat. So what I did is I got a mobile air conditioning unit. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a standalone air conditioner, and it worked really well. It brought the temperatures from sitting probably around the high 80s to sitting in the low 70s, or sorry, not low 70s, probably the mid 70s to low 80s. And I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it was more comfortable for me to work in there. I liked it. The thing that I noticed was that the humidity started kicking up a little bit. Not to an insane amount. I would say it probably peaked at around 50%, but it was much less consistent and I couldn't control it as much as I wanted to. And I thought it would hurt the prints. But something that I noticed as I kept going with this setup is that the prints actually started getting better. which was really interesting. I started noticing that the prints that I had before were actually pretty poor quality. And I just think that I didn't notice because they all came out the same. And so what I thought was good quality was actually bad quality. The overhangs were terrible. They weren't good. There wasn't stringing or anything like that, anything that you would find with filament that has absorbed moisture or anything like that. But just the quality of the prints were really bad, and I didn't notice until I got this air conditioning unit in here and saw how much better the prints were coming out. And this prompted the question for me that I wanted to discuss today is, if you have the option, do you want to control heat in a room with 3D printers, or do you want to control humidity? And for me, noticing what I've noticed, seeing in real life, my real life experience, it's going to be temperature for me 100% of the time. These prints came out much higher quality. And I know from my experience, and I know the people who listen to this podcast are going to be printing primarily with PLA. And PLA is something that is very sensitive to higher temperatures. You can't even put PLA outside. You can't leave it outside. It will melt, especially in the Southern California heat. Ooh, don't even try to leave PLA prints outside. That's just asking for a disaster. So what I've noticed is 100% control the heat if you can. If you can keep the humidity somewhere around like a house, somewhere around 60 to 70%, as long as it's even 70% is probably pushing it, but I honestly think that it's fine as long as you're not getting crazy like 85, 90% humidity to where the PLA can really sit and absorb that moisture. I think you're honestly going to be just fine. Because what I've noticed is that just the details, it comes down to the details. In 3D printing, I want the details to show up as well as possible and be printed as accurately as possible, especially when I'm doing jobs for other businesses. This job that made me notice it all was a 2-month long job that I was doing for a business. So obviously when I'm working for another business, I want the prints to turn out as good as they possibly can. And this journey going from month 1 to month 2 was kind of when I made the transition of getting the mobile air conditioning unit in there. And that's when I noticed the details, because I was printing the same exact parts. So I was able to tell small detail changes and what was changing from part to part. And that's what made me notice that the prints in the lower temperatures were coming out much nicer and much better. So that's what I have gathered from this. I would love to hear your guys' experience. Please let me know. I'm very, very interested to hear what you guys have to say. Now, I would like to make a note here and say that my case is most likely more on the extreme end of things. I don't think any hobbyist or anybody that doesn't do this for a business is going to have a room full of 3D printers that gets up to 95 degrees and ruins the quality of their prints. I think that might just be a me problem. But I just wanted to share my experience as candidly as possible, and hopefully there's somebody out there that can take from this experience and learn from it so they don't make the same mistakes I did. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want this podcast to be. I want to be able to share my experiences, share other people's experiences, and allow others to learn from my mistakes and from other people's mistakes so that they can be set up in the best way possible to succeed in this 3D printing space. And that's what I love so much about this community, is that it truly is a community. I've never once felt like I've asked a question. I've never felt like I've been to a Discord server. I've never felt like I've been to a subreddit. I've never felt like I've been attacked for asking a question. I feel like I've been met every time that I've had a question with really good advice and really honest advice. And I just love this community so much because of the togetherness and how nobody is against each other, and we're all working together to succeed towards a common goal, which is bringing 3D printing to the main space. And that's why I love 3D printing. I'm such a big fan. And I really do believe that this can succeed in the main space, and we just need to keep bringing it there. So thank you to everybody who is listening to this podcast. That is going to be the end of this episode. I hope you were able to take something from my experience. And just remember, Prioritize heat over humidity, unless you live in Florida where it's 95% humidity. Then you might have some problems. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Like I said, I'm going to try my best to upload with some more regularity. My email is down below. As always, if you have any questions to ask me, I've still been getting questions, which I really appreciate, and I will try to answer as many as I can. Please don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I would really appreciate it. And I will talk to you next time.